Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Wednesday, November 13th. Another great session for our data-driven community. This is going to be on mastering the right chart selection. Lauren's got some phenomenal content. Just a reminder, we do these sessions every middle of the month. We'll have many more going into next year. And if you have ideas and want to share different topic areas, we'd love to get your feedback and introduce that into future sessions. Otherwise, we'll keep coming up with great content for you. Little bit about the agenda here. The biggest part of this is that Lauren is going to talk about choosing the right chart in Tableau. You'll hear from me just a little bit, but Lauren is the main event today. At the end of the session, we'll have a Q&A. If there are any questions, you can come off a mute. You can ask questions in the chat window if you want, whatever you prefer. This is an open meeting, so if you're not talking, if you could stay on mute, you do have the option to come off a mute if you want to ask your question verbally, or again, you can use the chat window and I'll address those as we get going. And then we'll send out a recording and survey following today's session. Every one of our sessions has been posted on our Zeomatrix YouTube channel, and I can put a link in the chat for that. So every single one of these is recorded. This will be a good one to be able to go back to, but just know that they're all recorded and sent out, but also on our YouTube page. All right, today you're going to hear from Lauren Cristaldi. She's a senior consultant with Zeomatrix. She's been in Tableau. How long have you been in Tableau, Lauren? I have 7 years of data experience, but how long in Tableau? Is that right?
Yeah, I think maybe like 6.5 years in Tableau.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. You love formatting, you love design. I think this session is going to be awesome, and I know how much time you put into it on picking the right chart selection. So that's another area of focus for you too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That is great. Okay.
Could be
Cool.
the hardest part, honestly.
Yeah.
Trying to find the right chart.
Yeah, well, let's get right to it. This is our topic area. I have 2 bullet points because Lauren is going to cover everything in a Tableau workbook, and she has a whole obvious theme that she's going to cover. But today is going to be all about mastering the right chart selection. So how and when do you choose the right chart in Tableau? And what options do you have? And Lauren, it seems like in your presentation, from what I saw, you're going to talk about a little bit of the science of when and where to pick the right chart, how to do that in Tableau, how you would create the chart that makes sense for the analytical scenario that you have. Did I miss anything on what you're going to cover? Does that sound good?
No,
Cool.
that sounds
All right.
good.
Live demo time. And again, if you have any questions throughout, put them in the chat window, come off a mute, and Lauren, you can take it away.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
So can you see my screen? We good?
Yes, I can. We can.
Is it the right?
Yeah.
Do you see the dashboard? Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
we
It
can
didn't
see
do
it.
the green around it
Yeah.
like it normally does. So
Look.
here I've created, and I've seen this on Tableau Public, and maybe you guys have too, a little bit, like different versions of this, but this kind of a consolidated form where you have like a chart catalog and you can kind of look through and see what kind of charts are popular right now. I decided to kind of boil it down into these 4 buckets, which are the 4 main, analytical types and groups for charts. So you ask the main question, which insights are you looking for? So what are the questions that your business or your clients' businesses are asking to be answered from their data? And I'll just give an overview of all of these charts in the different buckets, and then I'll start going through how to build these different charts. So the first one is comparison, and it's used to identify and compare differences and similarities for 2 or more variables or metrics. Now, a lot of these look very familiar, I'm sure. A lot you can do from the show me, and it'll just generate based on the measures and dimensions that you select. So yeah, the first one we have these two sections in comparison that are change over time and static. So static would be like, I want to look at overall, not necessarily broken out by quarters or years or anything, just for this time period or for all of these years, what are my different metrics? Whereas the change over time, we have it broken by quarter. So the best way to do that, and really the easiest to read and get like quick insights, would be to have these lines, and then you can see the difference between the years. And the column bars or vertical bars do the same thing. It just kind of depends. Maybe you have a lot of line charts already going on. You want to kind of break it up and have it be more visually, interesting or different. But these are both really good choices. Then the horizontal bars, I think this is a good option for when you have like several different categories that you want to compare for a single metric or even multiple metrics. But the single metric with the different categories, it's still keeping it very concise and clean. And you're able to look and see, okay, well, technology is performing the best out of these three in terms of sales. For multiple metrics and multiple categories, we have the heat map, which the heat map also applies to a couple of these other ones, but the difference is in how it's laid out. So here, what we're doing is we're comparing three different metrics across three different categories. And we replace the color on these different boxes to show, just for sales, like each column is shaded differently. So that you're not getting like a comparison of quantity versus sales and profit, which we want to see the differences, but we wouldn't want to compare those, and it would kind of mess up our color scale. So any questions on comparison?
I think we're good.
Cool. Right, so next is relationship. So with the relationships, they're similar to distribution, but these are better to use when you have a change over time. So basically what you're doing is you're identifying the influence of different metrics or variables and how they relate to each other. So here we have another heat map. I really like heat maps. And you'll notice throughout this, I'm not going to show any tables because to me, this is about not using tables. Even though I know my first session was all about how to make better tables, but ideally you wouldn't have any tables. But so yeah, we would have for change over time with this heat map, it's showing us, here are the different quarters, here are the different years. If I'm asking, well, which quarters and years have performed the best? Well, you can see all of them over time in this one snapshot. So we can see based on the shading, and this is shading just on one metric, so just sales. We can see that it looks like Q4 performs the best year over year, and particularly Q4 of 2024 has been performing at the highest rate. Then over here is kind of cool. We have our subcategories broken out by, it's a static period. So again, we have the change over time and static. And here we're saying for this period, I think I had it filtered to the last 2 years, but you can do it by any static period. We're saying we have 3 different measures, and I want to see how they all relate to each other. So we have our sales, our profit, and then the size of these bubbles are actually the quantity. And it's kind of cool if you do the average lines and then some shading. You can see, all of the bubbles that are below average in terms of sales or below average in terms of profit or both that fall into this sector. Or up here, these are all of our top performers, and even some outliers, like the phones over here, they're very high in profit and sales. And it kind of makes sense with the quantity that they're selling at and the price point. So that's another insight you can gain really quickly, is just mousing over, seeing how they relate. Otherwise, it might be harder to pull all of those together. Any questions?
No, I would have called it too that if in case you're wondering how Lauren built this whole thing, you use zone visibility, right, Lauren?
Oh yeah. So yeah, I used zone visibility, and then actually I'll show this too. So I used a dashboard action where you change a parameter. So dynamic zone is built from the parameter. Then I have these different sheets, and each sheet just has the words that we have in these buckets. And that's a different value that matches with the integer parameter. So I just say like a max of 3, and it matches the 3 that's in this decision parameter. So it changes the parameter every time we click on another button.
That's really neat. I just wanted to call that out because it is pretty slick how this all came
Yeah,
together.
no, yeah, that
Yeah.
was a good call out. I actually forgot. I feel like I use dynamic zone so much now that it's come out. So I don't know if anyone remembers what the original form of dynamic zone was, but it was a mess, and I'm very grateful for that update.
Yeah.
So
Keep going though. Sorry. Didn't mean to
yeah.
interrupt.
Oh no, you're good. Yeah, the next would be the composition. So this is, we're identifying parts of a whole, or we're breaking down parts of a whole. I know that it's pie charts are kind of polarizing. I feel like a donut chart is the better version, or the best version of a pie chart. And what I would call out most though with the donuts is that, or any pie chart or type of pie chart, you want to stick to 2 to 3 slices. Any more than that, you're starting to slice too much, and then you're taking away from a more meaningful insight into those percentages and breakdowns. Like I had a client the other day who they wanted to see like demographic breakdown of education. So they really only cared about like one subset of a demographic population. So I was like, well, why don't we group all of these other races together and ethnicities so that we can just see, this ethnicity versus the whole, instead of seeing all of them together, and then it gets crazy. And that ended up working out really well. And they were able to say, like, oh, we know that this subset is, achieving these educational marks, instead of having to, search for them in all those slices. But that's my best tip for the donuts and pies. Right here we have it. I have it broken down, just saying like not profitable or profitable. But you could say like, in terms of a segment, it could be we just care about the consumer versus everything else. And you can even have multiple pies and just have them say those different groups or segments versus the whole. And I like to put the label in there for the metric we care about most. So if you care about, the larger part of the pie, in this case, if it's profitable or not, then you put that in the center. But if you want the not profitable value, then you put that in the center. For breakdowns that we want to see, for multiple categories and just one measure, then for like this would be the percent of total sales, but I want to see based on category and segment. So we have our segments here, and now we can compare and say, just at a glance, technology is performing the best overall in the home office segment versus the other two. But it looks like office supplies is doing the worst in home office, which is funny because you wouldn't think that, but looks like corporate, which actually that makes sense. And when you have it broken out like this, then you can say, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense why it's broken out this way. Then we have the changeover time for composition too. I don't use area charts that much, but I wanted to throw in one just in case. And this is a really easy, you can get it from the show me. And I just have it broken out by the different segments and, year and quarter. Any question?
Lauren, we did have a question from Xavier. He asked, this is on the relationship module. Yeah. So he asked, with the static chart shown, what kind of benefit have you seen with adding in a moving visual that takes into account a time series?
So in essence,
Oh,
basically kind of creating some sort of a story that shows the bubbles and kind of how it moves over time. So we can kind of see which
Hmm.
areas are kind of going in and out of the, I guess, above and below averages.
yeah, that would be really cool. I actually did that for my Iron Viz submission. I had like different top tens over time and it moved and it was really cool. And I enjoyed doing that because I don't ever get to do animations. I wonder, not to segue, but now I really want to do this. I think if we just add year, sometimes it's finicky, but I think it'll work.
So the pages
Oh,
optional?
that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so yeah, you add the year, or just, I just added order date and it defaulted to year, but we could make it quarters. Actually, maybe that would be better. Oh, that was a good suggestion. Thank you. Yeah, this is even better. So now we do have, I mean, it's kind of static because we're not showing all of them at once, but you get the best of both worlds.
Yeah. The pages, not often used.
Yeah, I wish that we used them more,
Yeah.
the animations and the pages.
That's pretty cool.
I'm going to save that.
Mhm.
Thank you. So, oh, distribution. So we're on the last one and then we'll start building out our charts. For distribution, this kind of related to relationship, how metrics and variables are distributed to find potential opportunities or threats. And well, most importantly, outliers. This is like a very basic statistical way of analyzing data. We have, and it's usually static. I think relationship again would be the better one to use for change over time. At least that's what I've found and read. But this one, you know, we have a scatter plot again, and we could add the animation actually to the scatter plot here as well. But this one is more granular and it's saying here are the different products and which categories they're in. And we can quickly determine based on these product orders which ones are above or below average in the greater population. And then here's our crazy outlier, which looks even crazier in this view compared to the other one because we have it on such a detailed level. Over here, we have so this is a histogram. It's where we use bins and then the count of orders or occurrences. The bins are good because they help you kind of group together different values. So you can see, you know, this, we normally have quantities that are ordered in just two, like a quantity of two. We have 4,000, over 4,000 of those. Anything less, this must be like a partial quantity or, you know, just one. It gets grouped into the 0 bin. And that's far less. And if you have like quantity of 10, and this is getting down to like the very granular, like row level detail of this order on this day, they for this product kind of a level, which is nice. And this is actually something else that I used for my Iron Viz submission because I was doing Legos and I was looking at the number of pieces because, you know, there's tons of Lego sets. Well, I wanted to know you have a minimum amount in a set and the maximum, and they're all of these pieces are different for every set, basically. I mean, for the most part, but I want to see how they group together so I could find like how many pieces are not necessarily on average, but in different bins. Like what do our bins look like? So that can be good to like group values together to see overall how are things distributed. And finally, I had to add a map in because I love maps. And we could even add more detail to this map, but just a good starting point would be, we have multiple categories, we have some geographic information, just a single metric, but it could be multiple metrics. Right now, we're focused on, here's the city, the state, the number of orders, and the segment they fall into. And if you mouse over just the state, we just have the total number of orders. But at a glance, you can see, the bubbles that are bigger have more orders, whereas the ones that are smaller have less orders. And depending on the color, and usually you'd have a legend up here, you can see like which segment that they would fall into. So it looks like the consumer segment makes up most of the orders, since they have the largest bubbles and we're seeing the most blue on the map. Any questions?
No questions that I see, Lauren.
Cool. All right, we can start building out some of these then.
Lauren, maybe real quick, maybe it's good if we can recap, because I know I personally am like still like I understand comparison, right? Like the modules, but can you maybe at like a high level, can we recap like what comparison is, what relationship is, composition, distribution?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, to frame it.
Yeah, so yeah, comparison, I'm basically asking, how are my sales doing over time, or how are compared to, other quarters or years? And then how are my sales doing compared to different categories? But then how are my sales, profit, and quantity levels doing for different categories? So those are some of the questions you would ask for any kind of comparison. Then relationship, I want to see, in the case of over time, well, how does this quarter at a high level compare to every other quarter for every other year? And on average, which quarter did the best, while still getting to see those values for that quarter? Then for the other one, for scattered bubbles, I want to see the comparison of profit and sales in the same chart, so that I can determine, well, which categories are performing, the lowest or the highest based on if they have, less than average profit or less than average sales, or greater than average, or, or above average profit or above average sales. So relating those two measures to each other. Then for your donuts and those stacked bars that are scaled, I want to see the different percentage breakdown of different parts of the whole pie. Based on what I'm asking, I want to see, okay, out of all of our profits and sales, what percentage is our company actually profitable? And it looks like 84%, pretty good for Superstore. And then, what about the different segments? Like maybe I need to pay attention more to home office, because for some reason they're not selling very many office supplies. So I should probably check into that. Then for the area, I'm just seeing like a general trend over time of how the sales are doing for each quarter based on the year. And it looks like consumer had some spikes, but these other spikes in sales also correspond to one another. So you can see this wave kind of going together, which makes sense. So yeah, kind of comparing those different parts of the whole, either scaled or not scaled to 100%. And the distribution, I just want to see how all of my values relate to one another. So whether they're in bins, and we can see like, the shape of this histogram, and it can tell us, is it uneven, or is it at a good curve? Where do most of our values fall? And then the scatter plot gives us, well, what outliers do I have? Maybe I need to check the data. Why is this, why is technology, the advanced copier so high? Or what about my lower ones? Why is this double head printer so low? So you can kind of easily identify those outliers and, make an action based on that insight.
Yep.
And same with the map, we can see, which cities or markets are buying the most and which ones maybe they have like medium bubbles and we're like, oh, maybe that's a good market to focus on next quarter. There might be some potential sales opportunities there.
That's really helpful, Lauren.
Yeah.
I think it's good to frame up the different areas. They didn't immediately make sense to me. But
Yeah, and
that
I had to read about it a lot because I
right.
do it all the time and I don't think about like, oh, what is the science behind
Yeah,
what I'm
more
doing?
science.
I'm just on autopilot sometimes.
Yeah. Now let's build some stuff out. Let's see how this is all made.
Yeah. So we can start with the easy ones. The vertical bars. So here, now you can either go to show me and it'll make all this for you. I do think it's better to kind of do it yourself sometimes just so that you get that muscle memory. So if we bring the order date onto columns, and I just had sales on the rows, we'll change this to a bar. And now we have our bar. We could change the color. I had it as orange. We could change order date to maybe just the quarter. That would be all the different quarters for all the years. Or maybe we want it to be, this to where we have the quarter and the year. For this one, I usually like to make it discrete, just so they're a little separated. I think it's easier to read, but they're both saying the same thing.
You covered two things that I think are really important as well. Like when you bring out a time dimension, like date in this case, and you bring out a measure, it defaults to a line and you can change the mark on your marks card, which I don't know if that's as widely known, which is really cool. You could change it to anything really. And then you also used a continuous quarter, but as you saw, the bars were close together and didn't look, almost harder to kind of interpret. And then all you did is you kept it that same configuration, but made it back to discrete. And that was a really nice tip, I think.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Yeah, I love
Thanks for
that.
calling that out.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about this one. I was like, oh, yeah, that's true. I guess when I first started, I didn't know that either. I'm like, I don't want these lines. What's going on?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, and another part is because we just have one measure, maybe we want to add a little more color. So if we drag sales, the sum of sales onto the color for the bars, now we can see, every Q4 is shaded a little more, but especially 2024 Q4. And it just makes it a little more visually interesting as well.
Yeah, it's a
So
good
yeah.
point.
And then next, okay, we're going to do our lines. Oh, I had that by year. Okay, had to double check. So we have our sales. You can just drag it into the middle there. Then we're going to use order date again on columns. You can drag sales to rows. I like to make it entire view so I can see how it's spread. Then we want the year of the order date actually on color. We'll change the year in the columns of order date to a quarter. And make sure to choose the first one that's quarter and not the second one. This will attach the year to it. So in this case, we just want to see the lines are our years, and then we can see how things are performing each quarter based on the year. And we could also change this to month, and then it gets a little more funky because there's more points to plot. Another tip for lines, I like to add from color on the marks card. If you go to markers and you change it to these circles, then it's identifying the points where it's meeting, you know, like September, October, November.
Lauren, I've also seen like where, let's say you care about only 1 year. Let's say it's 2024 and you make that line stick out and but you still have the other lines, but you make them maybe a different shade. How would you go about that? Because I see that, because sometimes you could have lots of lines in the view and it's like, what line is what? And I really want the user to focus here, but also have the context of other years in there. But how would you do that?
Oh, that's a good point. So for that, there's a couple ways. So either the easiest would just be to go in here and change these colors. So maybe we make all of these gray, and then we just have the current year standing out. Or we can make, so what I did was Command or Control if you're on Windows, and I just dragged another copy of that same measure, which we can make, actually, sorry, I need to do this. If you make so no matter what year it changes to, like let's say I just want to see this year or last year. Maybe it's based on a parameter, it's based on today. Well, next year it's going to be this year's 2025, last year's 2024. We don't want those colors to change for the previous or the current year. So our previous year would be the year of the order date equals the year of today minus 1. So that'd be our previous year. Oh, and we can use this on color, or we could use it to actually plot the lines. I actually suggest use it to plot the lines. So if we add an if condition, to say if the year of the order date is the same as the year of today minus 1, so last year, then give me my sales in the end. And I'll just go ahead and wrap that in an aggregate of the sum. You don't have to do that, but I just like to do that. Now we have our previous year. We just duplicate that. Just a little easier. You do the drop down, duplicate. We can change this to current year. So now we want the year of the order date to just equal the year of today. That's all we have to change. Say okay. I'm going to make a new sheet. We're going to drag in. We need to make sure these are continuous. So if you do the drop down, you can convert it to continuous. Also, if you select both of these and drag them to show me, it'll automatically populate in that measure values shelf, which is what we want. So we have our measure values. We want the measure names to be on color, the measure values on rows, and the order date on columns. We'll change that again to be the quarter. Entire view. We'll do those little markers again. So now we have current year or previous year highlighted. So it kind of consolidates those. And no matter what you change it to, or if the year changes, then it'll always stay current or previous with those colors. I'm trying to think of another.
That's cool. No, you don't have to do any more. I don't want to
Okay,
tell you too much.
I got
but
too into the lines now.
That's great. I mean, that's really cool. It shows you what you can do with Tableau with
Yeah,
formulas.
true.
Yeah. No, keep going. That's really cool.
Oh, I was thinking one last. So I think path would be another good one to do. If we do measure names again and drag it to path. Oh, nope, I'm thinking of my rounded bars. Sorry about that. Made too many line charts. They're all running together now. But yeah, this is a good tip for just, sticking with the current versus previous. And I'll try to run through these last two. Basically, this horizontal bar is going to be a lot like the first one. It's just instead we're going to I'll bring out segment. Here's our segment, bring that to rows, and then bring our sales to columns. And this just defaults to columns. And then we can bring segment onto color. And now we have the different colors for those categories. And a lot of times, I'd say if you're not going to show the labels, then definitely keep the axis. But if you are going to show the labels, so if I just hit, text or label and then show mark labels, now these are displayed. Well, I don't really need this axis. And we all know that dashboard real estate is very valuable. So as much as we can save. So yeah, I would just add those labels. Since we only have 3, I think that looks a lot cleaner anyway. And then we would format, we'd get rid of the lines and everything. For our heat map, I would do, so we look up measure values, just bring that in. And we actually want measure values on the rows. Oh, sorry. That was for our bars. We're going to change this to a square. We're going to bring, in this case, segment again to the rows. And then we want measure names on the columns. Now we're like 90% of the way there. So we bring measure values again onto color. Now we're seeing our heat map start to take shape. The only thing left is to bring measure values again onto label. Another tip for these heat maps, I really like to go into color and then add a border. So you can make it white or really any color. Sometimes gray looks nice. But yeah, but it just helps kind of break them up without breaking them up too much. So subtly breaking them up. And this is way too many measure values. So let's just keep, we can actually do shift and get rid of a bunch of these at the same time. So now we have like quantity, sales, discount. This is some of the measures that we could be comparing. But right now it's showing, it's comparing quantity, sales, and discount all to each other. So obviously sales is going to be shaded the darkest. But that's not really telling the story that we want it to tell. So if you go into measure values on color, you do the drop down and you say use separate legends. Now it's going to shade based on each column instead of the whole of all of the different measures. in our relationship. So yeah, this heat map is really similar to the one we just made. Only difference is we just have one measure. So the sales, bring that into detail. And then we have the order date up here, that's the year, and the order date right here. It'll default to year again. But if we just change that to a discrete quarter, and we change the marks to a square, like the other one, entire view, write that onto color, do sales again on label, and then from color, we'll make those borders again. And then in this case, we would just leave the legends so that we could see, overall for these quarters and years. I mean, you could still do the separate legends. I don't think they matter as much, but actually it doesn't let you do that with a single one, does it? No, you'd have to have a couple of different measure values in there to do separate legends. For the scatter bubbles, just with the two variables, this one doesn't have with the three, with quantity. So if we bring out sales onto rows and profit onto columns, and it could be any of these. And right now it looks a little weird because we only have one dot, but that's because we need more on detail. So if I say I want quantity to be the size, then I want to look at this on the subcategory level. So we'll add in subcategory, then we can add in subcategory again to color. Or you could even add in category onto color. And then we have only these three. We can either change the shape to be anything, to be stars. But usually I just do the bubbles, so just a circle will work. And when you do just the circle, you can add a border again, and it'll make those stand out a little more. Then to do the different averages, don't be afraid of the analytics tab. It comes in handy. You just drag the average line onto the table. So now it'll go into both. You could have it just be in one, but this way it'll go into both. You right click on that average line. We'll make it dotted. And we can fill above or below. Or just make it red for when it's below. And then we would do the same thing again for our sales average. Go below. And if we wanted to add that animation again, you just drag order date onto pages. And then it'll either show you the year at default, or it can show you all of the different quarters, or any date breakdown that you would want. And you just hit the play button. For the donut, and I want to make sure we have time for questions. So I think this one that we just made, the only difference is using the product name and then category, and then we're just looking at, a more granular level. So I just want to call that out since we just made the scatter plot one. To make the donut, what I do, and you don't have to use men, you can really use any ag function. I just do men 0, enter, just write it right in. And then Command or Control, you drag, and then we have 2 of them. You would do a dual axis, entire view, right click on one of the axes, synchronize. You don't really need to do that. It's just like a good thing to be in practice of when you're using dual axes. We're going to change the first one to a pie. We'll adjust the size a little bit. The second one we'll leave as a circle. Make it the same color as your background. And I like to have thinner donuts. But I mean, it's really just a preference. And from here, if we want to just look at sales. Oh. We'll drag sales onto the angle of the pie, but we need something to slice by. So in this case, because category only has 3, now we can see the different values in each of those. But if you want to do it by the percentage, really we could leave that there. If you want to actually see the percentage, then we would do sales again on the label or the detail. And we'd add a quick table calculation for percent of total. And it would give us that percent of total for those different categories. And they're all pretty similar. And that middle one, in this case, I would just do sales on label. And we'll adjust it so it fits in the center. And now we see our total sales versus how it's broken out. For the area, and I'll show how it's laid out here. So I just have segment on color. Then we have sales on rows. We have a continuous quarter and year. This helps the area chart look a little, it flows a little better when it's like this, but you can also do it as discrete. And then, yeah, that's it for the area chart. And you can also do it from the show me. It'll make an area chart for you. For distribution, okay, we covered the scatter plot. I'll go over the histogram real quick because I really want to get into the math before we start questions. So this, I made this bin for quantity, but Superstore out of the box has this profit bin, which is cool. And if we go over here, oops, add a new sheet, and we do the profit bin on columns, and do profit on rows, you can see how the different profits are distributed in those bins. And then you can actually, and this is also out of the box with Superstore, you can adjust the bin size. There's a suggested one, and I can show you here because you can make bins out of any measure. The suggested is 283, but our parameter is just 200. So to make it the parameter so that you can adjust it, you would just select that profit bin size, say okay, and then we can look at this parameter. It's just an integer. It has a range of values that you would put in, and then the user can adjust those values. Then for the math, real quick, we would do location, and it's already a hierarchy, which is nice because then it knows where it's supposed to go with the granular locations. So you just keep hitting that plus sign. We'll get it all the way down to city. But to get that fill in the back of just those states, drag state onto the add marks layer. But see, now it's freaking out. It doesn't know where some of the states are. It needs that country. So we'll add that to detail as well. And now that icon went away. So on the map, marks card, let's do the sales on color. Let me remove city. I got those all mixed up, but that's okay. Yeah, we'll add city as a circle here. So now all these states are being shaded by the amount of sales. You can see the amount of sales. And then for the circles, we can drag in the size as the quantity of the order or the number of orders. And we can do it by category. So now we see that distribution. It's not standing out as much because of the colors we have, which is another good point to bring up. Make sure that you're using colors that contrast when you have categorical color schemes. Yeah, I wanted to leave some time for any Q&A.
Well, there was a question that came in. And it said specifically we save it to the end. That's good. With the line charts, could you create a this year view and a last year view and then update those formulas for a year-to-date view?
Yeah. So we want that current year and previous year. So if we want it to be the current year to date, we would say that if year of the order date equals year of today, and order date is less than or equal to today. So now, since we're already in the fourth quarter, it looks like that, but let's change that to a month.
Yep. So the previous
Yeah.
year is recorded for last year and then where you are as of November. Yep.
And then we could also change the previous year if you want to just compare the year to date versus, oh, I'm sorry. Teams has a mind of its own.
Yeah, it does. Well, I think the big thing here too is, Tori, that was your question. It's just a matter of inputting the right formula, right, to capture year to date or whichever view, and then you create a measure that you can then plot on the view here.
Right, exactly.
So you changed your formula ever so slightly to these year-to-date calculations always confused me, and I started creating like a OneNote with all of them documented, right? And it's all documented on the community forums, but having a cheat sheet with these formulas, year-to-date, previous year, previous quarter, month, all that's great. If and just document it somewhere, Tori, where you can pull from it when you need it, because it's rare that I see people like Lauren that can just reel this off on the fly.
Oh yeah, I even struggle with it sometimes, I'm not gonna lie. So
I don't know. You just reeled it off pretty easily. But I know what you mean. But that'd be my advice because I just keep a document with them and that really helps with common formulas that I'm not going to remember offhand. So cool. Any other
yeah,
questions?
that's a really good tip.
Yeah, that's saved me a lot of times. All right, we got 2 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes. Any other questions that I think Xavier, if time allowed, could you show us again how to add color in the trend line space, Lauren? Color in the
Oh,
trend
I
space.
was like, trend line. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. So in that space right there, I see.
Yeah, so if you, from here, you add in that average line from analytics. Then if you right click after it comes out and do edit, you can also do this from format. But if you do edit, you go fill below, and that's where you can change that color. Or you can do fill above, and it would also change. You can also change the weight of your lines or the frequency of the dashes or if it's solid.
Very cool. This is Xavier, to your question, Lauren is in the desktop app. And Lauren, is that specific, that level of formatting? Is that
I'm following along on the website and trying to replicate some of the things, and it appears that that option is not available when I'm on the website. So I was just curious if I was missing something or not.
No,
Push
you're
that.
probably not.
Oh.
That question's asked a lot. The biggest difference, if you're someone that uses desktop or web, the web version, Xavier, that is probably the biggest gap is just from a formatting. The degree of formatting that you can do sometimes doesn't exist. So if you have a creator seat, you could get a desktop license and you can link that with your Tableau site, your Tableau Cloud or server site. And you can get a little bit more, call it control over formatting.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, any other questions? I know we're right at time. My clock is probably a little fast, but any other questions? Otherwise, Lauren, tremendous presentation here.
Yeah,
And
this was fun. I liked putting it together.
this is fantastic, says Scott. That's great. Thank you for the feedback, Scott. All right, well,
Yeah,
we'll
thank
see
you.
you next month. We'll have it recorded and sent out. Again, it's on our YouTube channel. And reach out to us if you have any topic ideas. We're always looking for ideas, if you can't tell. I keep saying that because we would love some feedback on, hey, could you do this? Otherwise, we're going to keep picking topic areas, but help us out if you have any areas that are giving you trouble.